Call the meeting to order. And we have a roll call.
Gerald Clack,
Here.
Chris Foster,
Here.
Mike Constantine,
Here.
Andy Rogers. We have a quorum.
All right. We have a discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of December 13th.
I move they be approved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. The action carries. The minutes of December 13th, 2021 special meeting have been approved. Okay, now we go into a public hearing, which is a continuance.
I need a motion to enter.
Motion to enter.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing, and the applicant is Tom Birchfield. And you're requesting variances on the side and rear setback of your property.
Sir?
You are requesting variances on the side and rear setback of your property.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what, I'm not sure about, and
Mr. Birchfield, if you want to present to them what you'd like to do besides just the highlights of it, just let them know that what you're going to do, why you're wanting this variance and the history of it, then once they complete that and you make your formal request, then we'll leave the public hearing and then staff will present to them in the next item what needs to be done. So this is your opportunity to convince them that to allow the variance to occur.
Well, I mean, the slab has been there for 20-plus years, and there's been no work on it. There really, I mean, that one deal said there is some utilities back there, but it's on the other end of the property. It's on the north side, on the back east by the alleyway, but it's on the north side. So it's way away from where I'm already at, and like J.R. Morrison, just across the alley, he took and dug a ditch clear across the whole block just to drain his backyard. And that ditch is still there, and there was no problem with any utilities then. So I got one shed that is sitting there, and it's all in a foundation. It's all there. It's all, you know, I just put the church gave me the building, and I just put it on the slab. I had no idea about these setbacks, and I know I messed up by not getting the permit first, but I didn't think about that. And I mean, I spent quite a bit of money here trying to do all this, you know, to get it to where it's so you guys could have your thing. So I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I'll try.
Normally, I don't speak during a public meeting, but I will add this to it. At a previous meeting, Mr. Birchfield had brought this up, that he'd been approached about this issue, and I suggested to him that he get it surveyed to determine exactly what the extent was. A copy of that survey was in your packet. When it was explained to me in the beginning, and I told Mr. Birchfield he should get it surveyed so we know exactly what was going on. I didn't know to what extent we were going to find on the survey. So I think the survey in and of itself was invaluable to you in making your decision. I think it's invaluable to Mr. Birchfield as to the extent of the problems. I will mention that at that request, I also had the water and sewer guys go out and verify the manhole that sits at his southwest corner of his property, out in front of his property. There is a line that extends into that manhole that runs along his south boundary of that property. To how far east it goes, we don't know. It probably goes to a clean out but there is, the key is, as far as the city or the MUB was concerned, there is a utility in that south utility easement that's identified by that survey.
Okay, I guess what I wanna ask you, I see the portable shed on this survey.
See, that's the thing, it's not portable. Everybody keeps saying that, but it's cemented down with poles and it's into the foundation that is there. That's why, and it's always been there like that. It's never been portable.
So, okay, so it's not on skids or,
No, sir.
okay.
Is there not a portable shed next to it?
No, sir.
So your surveyor that identified that, one, I don't know if you have that copy, yeah, that identifies that portable shed.
Right, that is cemented into the there's a foundation that runs all the way around this, and all the poles are cemented in.
Okay, so he's called that a portable shed.
Right, but it's not.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
a 7 by 18 shed.
Okay, so then the slab that says shed, that's the slab that you want to build
Yes, sir.
a new building on? Is
He's
there
already-
any-
He's already built.
Yeah, I've already built it. That's.
Already built it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr.
Do we need to
Birchfield?
exit public hearing first?
We need
Yeah, if there's no other comments from,
Okay.
on that, you need to finish that.
All right, then do I hear a motion to exit the public hearing?
Motion to exit.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. We have now exited the public hearing. Okay. So basically, the building has been built on the existing slab. And it is encroaching upon the, well, it's way encroaching upon the setbacks, but it's also encroaching upon the property line.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree that there appears to be three items here that makes up this question. One of them is and this is based solely upon the survey that Mr. Birchfield had done. The slab that's identified as shed encroaches on other property that this board does not regulate. It's actually owned by somebody else. So to leave that slab in place and allow improvements on that slab, such as the building that apparently has been built on it, is basically allowing the one private individual to encroach upon another property owner's property. I understand Mr. Birchfield didn't know there was an issue there. There was some question whether that was really an alley or whether it was owned by someone. The Mays County Assessor Office identifies that piece of ground directly behind his property as owned by Mr. Daniel Maris, M-A-R-A-S. So that we don't really have any regulatory right there to allow that encroachment. So the allowance of building, what it comes down to is he wanted to build a building on this slab. He took down the existing structure that was there, and then this building that the church donated or gave to him, that they wanted to put on the slab. So that act brought that back to the point where this board needed to have a building permit issued. The building permit was not requested, so this would have come up at a point in time when the encroachment would have been identified prior to any improvements being done. The fact that he has made improvements on that slab, in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, it should not prejudice this board in any way regarding the right of this board to make a ruling on this request for variance. If the building is improperly installed, and it's certainly improperly installed on someone else's property, we don't have the right to say that's okay with the city that you've encroached on someone else's property. That's item one. Item two is the fact that the slab itself sits over a utility easement which is the right of this board to regulate. And we have confirmed that that utility easement does contain a utility. It may or may not extend under that slab that's there now. It may stop short of it, west of it. But there is an active utility in that, within that easement itself. And that's the premise by which this board operates, is to control the public access or public properties there. In addition to that, that property also encroaches, as identified by his survey, 2.69 feet onto, I guess, the property that would technically be south and east of his property. Again, that's property that we don't control, and so allowing development on a property that encroaches on someone else's, we would basically be allowing that to be done, and it could be an issue for this board down the road. So it's really those three issues. The fact that he's already done it, he's already put the building up there, is really not a concern here. You know, if allowed to stay, we're basically condoning the encroachment on other private property, in the way I see it. There is a resolution. It would require, you know, the moving of the building. I think is it just bolted down to the slab, or is it just sitting there?
One side is cemented, the other side is bolted down.
The building is cemented in?
Yes, the poles are.
Okay, well, we could authorize the encroachment over the utility easement. That this board could take action on, but I don't know that we could really do anything about the encroachment over the private property in either direction. So the fact that if the building itself encroaches, he's gonna need to move it. We can't be a party to that, allowing that encroachment.
Could I get like a permission or something?
Well, probably the easiest thing to do, frankly, is to contact your neighbors and find out about purchasing that encroachment area.
That's what I was.
So, because it would just be buying 3 foot off of somebody.
Right, it's already been offered to me once, but it was years ago, somebody else owned it.
Well, if he could eliminate the encroachments to the private property, then the encroachment on the utility easement, we could actually do research on that to determine whether that short line, and it can't go very far, so it either goes under that slab or it goes right up to it. We could find out whether that was gonna be an issue. As far as that utility line being extended in the future, there's no likelihood of that. But with the 3 items that we just talked about, I don't see how this board could take any action other than to, at this point, recommend that the building be moved. If he eliminates the 2 private property encroachments, then this board could maybe modify the rule.
Also, just want to bring up too, also about the setback requirements and everything. That is something that we also need to look into, in this case, on this property where this building sits.
Setback requirements.
Yes, sir. You have a list of those that we gave you some time ago. That's in the code that went into effect in January of 19. That's, Cheryl, do you know, do they have a copy of those? I know they
It's-
have in the past.
It's on his survey.
But we don't know where that 15 feet comes from with the surveyor. In the code, it calls for 20% of your lot depth.
Right. That's the one you got the letter from,
From Kim Ritchie, the
Yep.
city attorney. That we had that question come up several years ago. And we have that.
He would need to get a variance from that. The 20% rule, his one lot line of his 167 plus feet, so that would be 32 feet that he would have to have everything set back. He'd have to move both buildings if there's, or that entire slab would have to be moved out of that setback area, along the shortest line. The other property line's 190 feet, so it would actually, the 20% rule. 20% rule has some caveats in it. I'll be honest with you, I did not read the ruling from Mr. Ritchie. There are are some caveats in that 20% rule that allows auxiliary buildings and swimming pools and things like that to encroach on that 20% rule. So, I would need to do a little bit more research to determine exactly what the foundation for that would be with regard to these buildings. Typically, that is a, again, I don't want to get into that. Typically, the 20% rule is what they call a livability standard. It's basically an intent to leave green space on property for backyards, for green spaces, things like that. But it does have provisions in there for items that can encroach on that 20% rule and that do not affect livability and do not affect, it's primarily directed towards the primary structure on that property. So the house itself or the residence itself could not be extended into that 20% area, but there's certain things that could encroach on that. Auxiliary buildings are one of them, I believe, in that text. Now, an auxiliary building may have to be defined as a building that could be moved on skids or something else. So that when you put a foundation or a concrete slab underneath it, now it may not be defined as an auxiliary building. So the action for this board is 4.1 or 4.1, which is the side setback variance for the auxiliary building. I would think that and this is, again, I think 4.1 and 4.2 both need to be tabled until such time as he can determine whether he can eliminate the encroachments on the private property.
Yeah.
Until that's done, this board really can,
Right.
I think that's.
Otherwise, we don't have an option.
Yeah, it would be reasonable to give him a time frame to do that. My suggestion would be 90 days to actually acquire or eliminate those private encroachments. And then at the end of that time, the board can come back and make a ruling on that.
All right, do I hear a motion to?
I make a
table?
motion that we table this for 90 days to give Mr. Birchfield an opportunity to see if he can eliminate these personal encroachments by purchasing that land. And we'll come back and see what happens after that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard? Okay, that will be the order.
So that gives you 90 days to see if you can figure out.
Okay, you guys keep saying there's two private properties I have a problem with, or is it just one?
It's just the one, it's Mr. Maris's or Morris or,
How do you spell it?
well, I'll give you the thing, you just have it. I don't have to give it to you in 2 sheets, but that's the property. And here's his information. I'm sorry that it's broken up that way. Daniel Maris, he lives in I know.
Oh, okay.
So you can
Okay,
have
can I have these?
You
Okay,
sure
all right,
can.
thank you, because I'll get that handled real quick. So there's nothing on the south side, you say?
No, the only thing on the south side, or the south part of that is the utility easement that runs your full length of your property.
Okay.
And there is a utility in there, but I don't know if it extends that far to the east.
Right.
But according to the water and sewer people have gone and verified, there is a line that runs back up there on your side of the property.
Yeah, okay.
Do we need to make an adjustment to the table, to the motion to table for the 90 days and for the utility report? Do we need to cover that in the motion?
Well, I would say yes. That frankly, I don't think the board should make it, if he can resolve the private property issue on the back of his property, then it really comes down to the 2 issues that were brought up, which is encroachment on the utility easement which is one issue, and then the 20% rule, which I'm gonna need to look at as to whether that's 100% applicable in this case. But if we apply the 20% rule in the way it's being proposed today, then it doesn't matter whether he buys the property or not, because he's gotta keep at least 30 feet clear on the back of his property, and none of this slab or none of these buildings that are back there could exist in that 30 foot. And I'm not sure that that's this board can rule on that today. I would say they need to table it for 90 days to allow the private thing to work out, and we can find out and get a little more definition on the other two issues. We need to get with MUB about the allowance of the encroachment on the 10-foot utility easement. And frankly, I think that if the utility doesn't go underneath that slab, and we don't have a 20% rule issue, if it really boils down to just the 10-foot utility easement issue, if the utility doesn't go under it, I think that's something we could probably allow an encroachment on. I would support that. But if it comes down that we've got any other issue regarding the 20% rule, or MUB says there's a possibility that line could be extended, then of course there's always another possibility, which is they would want to put a different utility in there, water line, power line or something. They'd want to keep it clear. Is there power poles along your south boundary now?
There is a power line there.
It runs over this building?
No, it's in the alley. It's.
Oh, it runs north to south,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
There's nothing running east and west?
No, sir.
Okay. I just have to get with MUB and find out if it's a possibility of them ever putting something on that south easement. I don't think the alley, as he calls it, the alley, there's some question even here, but if you look at the county assessor's map, the alley stops north of him. There is no alley directly east of his property. That's owned by this gentleman. So at some point in time in the future, or in the past, that alley had been either vacated or never dedicated.
I just wanted to be clear how I'm gonna put this in the minutes to
Right.
what the table's going to include.
I would just say it's tabled for him, enough time or sufficient time for him to clear up any private ownership, private encroachment easement.
And then,
He'll still need to come back to this board in 90 days for the utility easement encroachment.
okay.
So, I guess my concern is if we don't define the setback issue, like you said, it may not benefit him at all to purchase a chunk of that property. So,
Do you have that ruling that Kim wrote? Was it on this property or just in general?
It was in general.
I'll just have to read it. I haven't
Okay.
seen that. I know I've read this.
I guess my
20% rule.
point is, before he makes a final payment to buy the property, we need to get that resolved somehow.
Okay,
I think that would be appropriate. That way, if it's not gonna matter to him, there's no need for him to buy that property, and he's just gonna have to use that money to move the building. But I think that makes sense.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to change how I word this table then? Or just table to bring back to the board in 90 days?
I think that's probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then we'll try and get the ancillary stuff figured out.
okay. Okay, guess we're,
All right, any other business to come before the board? Not need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All those in favor,